Here. So I am losing that iron. So it is a loss to human being, no. I am having an iron door because it is getting rusted. How
You
it
are
is?
not losing that iron. You were not even having that iron. Iron was there.
That iron door, as an individual, I'm talking by from my home. I'm having an iron door.
Yes. This ownership is declared by human being, right?
That attachment, ego.
Yes. Yeah, what is the question?
So I'm losing that iron door. So it's a loss to me. As an individual, I'm speaking.
See, this iron was there by virtue of coexistence. Now that rust is there by virtue of coexistence. Where is the loss? Coexistence is there anywhere.
Because of the interaction.
Yeah, so what is the loss? You get my point? The iron was there by way of coexistence. Now we have the rust by way of coexistence. The coexistence continues to remain the same. Okay. Now where is the loss?
I'm losing my door. I have to get another one, new one.
So there is a loss in the door or my door, that my. Yes, my door. That is important. Okay, that we should understand. If we understand the process, okay, we will do whatever can be done for that. Okay. So I said that if I don't want that door to rust, I'll put some paint on it. Okay. Or I will make the door of wood, okay, and I know that this wood will get consumed after, let's say, 20 years. In the meantime, some tree will grow and it will give me the wood. Okay. There is enough trees growing. Okay. If I understand both this process of this door which I have constructed out of wood has its lifetime, because all this coexistentially, lot of interactions are taking place. So it will get consumed, but then there are trees which are growing. Okay. So if I understand both this, then after every 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, I can make new doors. What is the problem? And burn this door, use it as a fire, this thing, right? And that is what was done, very common thing to do. Now you are not using wood to save the nature, and you have started using iron, which is making more damage to the nature. Okay. Iron was not produced in the nature, right? The wood were produced in the nature, still being produced in the nature. So if I understand this coexistence, this harmony, this relationship, and what is happening in the process, right, I can work out my utilities in a process which is in line with this whole thing which is going on anyway, right. So some natural process is going on anyway. If I understand it, then I can create utilities in a manner that it is in line with the natural process, right. Then I am not creating pollution. Then there is no pollution, right. The trees are going, right. A tree has a lifetime of 100 years, so it will grow for 100 years, then it will die, right. Then that wood is available, you can make your door, you can make your roof, you can make your floor with that, right, and it will last for 100 years, 200 years, that depending upon how much life it has, right. So if I understand these processes, I can work out, how to go about it in a very natural cyclic system, manner. mutually enriching manner. Right. So, there is no loss, no gain. Yes, the door is dying and the tree is getting, preparing the fresh wood for you. So, this interaction is there, and out of this interaction you can see this activity of formation and deformation, right. So, formation, deformation taking place in the iron is because of this interaction, and this interaction is because of the coexistence. Is it clear? So, coexistence is leading to interaction, interaction is leading to formation and deformation, which is the activity of the physical order. Okay. Then you can see that out of this interaction, these transformations, the formation deformations are taking place, but till that formation deformation takes place, it continues to have a self organization, right. Like iron remains like an iron piece unless it is transformed into the rust, right. So, by virtue of this interaction, it exists as an iron piece or it exists as a piece of rust, Okay. So, that existence is there and the composition decomposition is there by virtue of this interaction, which is by virtue of coexistence. Similarly, if you look at this pranic order, the bio order, okay, what you see in bio order is interaction plus pulsation. You know what is pulsation? No. If you hold your hand like this, okay, can you feel something? Pulsation. This pulsation is taking place in every cell of the body, right. It is taking place in every cell of any bio order. Right. And this pulsation is by virtue of the coexistence, coexistence between different cells. There is a kind of vibration, taking place in this cell and taking place in this cell, and it is this vibration which is relating one cell to the other cell. So, if you look at your body, trillions of these cells are there, each one of them is pulsating, right, and through that they are recognizing their relationship with other cells, and that is how this such a big body is formed, right, and it is in harmony, it is in order, it is in a state of self organization without you doing anything. Just imagine trillions of cells are there in your body, they are all recognizing their relationship with each other, right, fulfilling that relationship. That is how your body is there. You are not doing anything for the body to be there, right. And that recognition of relationship and fulfillment is done through this pulsation, which is there by virtue of coexistence. If you start understanding these things, you will see so much is available to you, even without your knowledge. all this is available, right, and in harmony, in relationship, and you are able to make right use of it without doing anything for it. So, trillions of cells together in relationship, in harmony, right, making sure the self organization of the body, and now that body is self organized, you are doing something with the body, right, isn't it? Yeah. So, in the bio order you have interaction plus pulsation, and this pulsation results into respiration. Respiration in the body is an outcome of this activity of respiration, is an outcome of this pulsation. Every cell is, you know, taking something in and extracting something out, and all that put together is your respiration, you know. You are what you are inhaling in and what you are exhaling, what you are taking as an intake and what you are excreting, right. That is an outcome of this collective, you know, pulsation of every cell. So, very interesting, so much of it happening without your knowledge, without your involvement, but by virtue of coexistence. So, if you understand this, you will have lot of this gratitude, you know, for this coexistence. So much of gratitude for the coexistence, okay? Because so much is all available to you by virtue of coexistence without you doing anything for it, without even knowing anything for it, you know, about it. Then this expression of coexistence, which is this pulsation, is, you know, expressing itself in terms of nurturing or worsening other pranic bio order and the growth of the bio order. How the growth is taking place? By this process, you know, of taking in something or excreting something out by inhaling something, exhaling something, right, and that ultimately is taking place because of this pulsation, which is because of the coexistence. So, the coexistence is expressing like this and this is expressing like this. Similarly, you can expand it to the human being, you know. So, if you expand it to the human being, this is how it looks like. This chart we have already understood, right, before. I have added only this column, right, only this column is added. What does this column say? It says, by virtue of coexistence, by virtue of submergence, we see this interaction in the physical order, we see this pulsation in the bio order, we see this, you know, interaction and pulsation in the body and sensation in the self, I. In case of human being, in the self, in the body it is the same, in the self we see sensitivity in the I and knowability in the self. So, if you look at the self of the animal, there is sensitivity, it can recognize relationship and fulfill relationship on the basis of some assumption. Human being can also do that at the level of self, but it can also know, it has the possibility to know, it has the possibility to understand. That is knowability, that is, you know, ultimately leading to knowledge in the self. And if you look at the human being, at the level of body it is same as the bio order. So, I will not explain anything. But at the level of self, if you look at human being, as long as you are operating with sensitivity in I, that is operating at the level of imagination, operating at the level of desire, thought and expectation, right. You are not very different from the animal. You as human being has the potential to know, to understand, right. So, when you start operating with this knowability, then there is a qualitative change. All this is because of the knowability. This we have already explained, right. The human being has this yellow possibility in the self and this violet possibility in the self. As long as we are operating only with this, we are not significantly different from animal, right. That is why it is called animal consciousness. When you start operating with this possibility, then you are living like a human being, right. That possibility which is there for human being, you are able to realize it. But all this potentiality of knowing is realized because of this knowability already there, right, which is by virtue of coexistence. So, this capacity to know or the potential to know is already there in you, or you have created that potential. We as human child, we all have curiosity to know, isn't it? You do not have to create the curiosity, curiosity is already there, you have to satisfy that curiosity. Every human child wants to know, isn't it? If you are a cow giving birth to a calf, just observe what happens. When the calf is born, in 15 minutes it is able to trace, where to drink milk, right. Within 15 days it learns how to graze. After that it has nothing to learn, no question to ask, isn't it? What about the human child? He will start asking question, and if he answer one question, another question, right, then 10 question, and then you have to ultimately say enough, let me complete the course, right. So, this knowability is there by virtue of coexistence in each one of us, in each of the self of human being, each of the consciousness unit in human being, isn't it? You generally stop asking question because somewhere you come to think that your elders do not have answers, and if you ask question they will shout, okay. So, better not ask question, okay. So, that curiosity remains, but whenever you see the possibility of getting an answer, you start asking question, right, isn't it? That you can see for yourself. So, all this that we talked about is an expression of this, and this is by virtue of coexistence. See that so much of variety that you see in the nature is ultimately out of this coexistence, expression of this coexistence. So, at the root, at the base is coexistence, and this coexistence is expressing itself in the form of interaction. and ultimately knowability, and that shows in different ways in these 4 orders and the whole nature, because this is the whole nature, right. Can you see this? So, you when you expand so much of it, so much in variety in the nature, when you try to condense it, just a small seed of coexistence, right. When you are expressing, there is creation, right. At any time, if there is condensing, then you feel as if there is a destruction, right. But basically what it is the coexistence expressing itself in many ways, right. Yes, this is in essence we wanted to discuss in lecture 19 and lecture 20. Some points for self-reflection. Continuing with that of last session, let us investigate into our own natural characteristic innateness and coexistence, that is subvergence. Explore as to which feeling is natural for you in your relationship with other human being, feeling of affection or jealousy, respect or disrespect, and so on. Explore as to what is natural feeling for you in your relationship with your body, feeling of nurturing or exploitation, protection or otherwise, right utilization or misuse of the body. Also check whether your interaction with the body is in line with it or not. Third, explore as to what is natural feeling for you in your relationship with physical facility, feeling of enrichment or exploitation, protection or otherwise, right utilization or misuse. Also check whether your work with physical facility is in line with it or not. All this relates to you, right. But this is based on that understanding, If we understand this, you can rightly decide what feeling in relationship with other human being, what behavior, what work, is natural, what is not natural. So these are the questions related to your being, right. This is the description relating to your existence, the human existence or the existence as a whole. If you understand this, you can define your role properly. What you have to do with yourself, what you have to do with your body, what you have to do with the physical facility, right? Can you understand that properly? Yeah. This is talking about the activity that is taking place, activity taking place in one unit and the other unit. Okay. So, for example, this iron piece is combining with oxygen and water, right. This is an activity taking place, right. What is the outcome?
Rust.
Outcome is the rust is formed,
Okay.
right.
Okay, Bhaiya. That
So
is
the
clear.
composition of rust has taken place, decomposition of
INS.
iron has taken place, decomposition of water has also taken place,
Understood.
right. So that shows as the participation of this water with respect to the iron. Okay. So, this is describing about the participation, and this is describing about the activity that is taking place in that process of participation. So, this is taking place because of this is taking place because of this is taking place because of this. Ultimately, what is there at the root? Coexistence, the submergence. So, if you really look at this coexistence and understand that coexistence, we will see everything is related to everything, no isolation, no division, right. When you say understanding the truth, means understanding this coexistence. When you understand this coexistence, you see that you are related to everybody, right. When you have this feeling of relationship for everybody, that is what is love. And if you are related to everybody and you have that feeling, then you will live with that relationship with everybody, right, or at least think of living with relationship with everybody. That is compassion, right. So, truth, love and compassion, will emerge out of this understanding.
Ganeshji, can we say
And
that?
this is what every religion is trying to say, right. Understand the truth, have the feeling of love and live with compassion with every unit of this existence, right, every creature living, every unit living or non-living, isn't it?
Ganeshji, can we say that love is the expression of coexistence?
Love is the feeling based on the understanding of this coexistence. Compassion is the expression outside.
Okay.
So, love is the feeling in me which I express as compassion for everyone around. So, yeah.
So probably we can have this feeling of love only completely when we realize coexistence.
Exactly. That is what we are saying every time we are drawing that picture, realization of coexistence, understanding of harmony and contemplation of relationship. So, that feeling of relationship will come in completeness only when it comes down from that understanding of coexistence.
Ji.
That is why it is essential for you to go right up to that realization. Then from there when you come down, you see it is all very natural now, very automatic for you. You are not doing some favor, some favor for the other. You know that that is the way things are. It. Isn't it? So you are not doing some favor for others. You are not doing social work. it is an existential reality. The whole existence is in the form of coexistence. With that coexistence, every unit is in harmony, every unit is in relationship. I as human being, as self, also with that realization of coexistence, I am also in harmony and I am in relationship with everyone. That is the feeling of love. This is the kingdom of God, right? Call it by any name. Then you have happiness, continuity of happiness, everything is added unto you. Now you don't have to get anything, in addition. If that realization of coexistence takes place, then understanding of harmony will follow, the feeling of relationship with everyone will follow. Then you will have this feeling of love for everyone. Then all your imagination is filled with that, how to live with relationship, with love with everyone. All your actions are guided by that. So you have that compassion. So all that will come. If we have the understanding of coexistence, realization of coexistence, everything will be added unto it. Then you are not left with any problem. And interestingly, nothing less will do, every one of us have to reach there.
Ganesh bhai, so by units being in the space, this coexistence, the submergence, human order has this potential to knowability. So it needs a conducive environment to know that.
Yeah, it needs conducive environment. It also needs guidance from the previous generation, right? And that is the purpose of education and sanskar. The right education and sanskar is expected to provide right kind of environment, number one, right kind of proposals to be given, right, and proper guidance has to be given, so that each child, who has an inquisitiveness to know, right, is able to listen to those right proposals, right, explore within, practice it, and if he has any confusion, he can ask question and clarify, right. That is one thing. But even before that, when he presumes that the elders are always right, and he is going by that assumption and following you, imitating you, if you have the right understanding, right feeling, right thought and right action, then all that is he is learning by way of imitation, by way of following you, by way of the discipline given by you, he will be able to do what is right, right. And then when he is trying to explore himself, if you provide the right kind of proposal and right kind of guidance and the environment, he will be able to understand the reality himself, right. He will be able to go right up to that realization of coexistence, and then come down to understanding of harmony and contemplation of relationship. If that happens, then now he is comfortable, now he is safe. You have done your part of the job. Now the child has this clarity in him, he has that feeling in him, and he can live with that feeling, within himself as well as with everyone else.
It has to not stop with one individual because he is following the society and other human beings. So it has to spread to all human beings, generation after generation. Then only continuity of this is possible.
Yes. Rajulji keeps saying that I keep doing this because I feel that if I dissociate with this body and associate with this mother body next lifetime, I must have a conducive environment, so I must prepare it before I leave this body, everywhere if this environment is available, then I am safe. Otherwise I am in risk, isn't it?
That is the responsibility on each and every one of us.
And interestingly, what else will you do? If you understand the coexistence, harmony and relationship, what else will you do except this? Homework, we can move on to the next, this thing, Rajulji, 90.
I have a question like to be in the state of super bliss, like seeing the eternity, like saints or like rishis, they have to activate 7 chakras. Like 7 chakras they have to activate one by one so that they'll reach the realization state. And so far I believe that it is something happening in the body. I never tried for even one chakra. But then I thought that it is all things that is happening in the body. But now I could realize that it is the realization of the self which is going to happen in oneself to reach that particular state. Am I right, Bhaiya? It's like first we have to work on with happiness, then peace, then satisfaction, then bliss and super bliss. Like that, it is going to happen in the chakras also. Am I right, Bhaiya?
I will respond in a minute.
Like it will be a long process, but the process is the same or different.
See, as I was saying, if you look at the tradition, we have a long tradition, all over the world, where people have tried to understand human being, try to understand the purpose of human being, and how that purpose can be realized. And they have come up with different ways of expressing their solutions, that they got. Same case is happening, almost all the places, including in India. So in India, if you see, many such approaches have been defined, and this is one of them that you are talking about, And one of the essence of this system is that you are not just the body, okay? The body is there, but the self is also there, and there is a way in which this self connects to the body, okay? So lot of kind of exploration was made about this interaction between the self and the body, okay? And what kind of interaction will take place depending upon the status of the body and depending upon the status of the self, right? And how you can move from the lower status to the higher status of the self and therefore the body, or vice versa. So lot of this work was done, So I will not get into those details, but I would say that it is one system which is trying to help you understand that you are not just the body, but you are also the self, and some interaction between the body and the self is taking place, and you have to raise the status of your body as well as the status of your self, right?
You are telling about meditation, Bhaiya?
Ultimately, no, I am talking about chakra that you were talking, right? Ultimately, it is said that when you have the highest, you are at the highest level of chakra, there you can realize the space, you can realize the coexistence. That realization can take place at the level of self, not at the level of body, of course. So all those different descriptions are there.
Even there also the body is used as an instrument to realize that realize the self.
Yeah, it is used as an instrument, and it says that certain process can be done with the body, and it will facilitate that process in the self. So all those details and many things, if you look at this systems which have been developed, and it is this case in the all over the world, but in India also this case is there, different ways of making this traveling, this journey possible, and people have explored it, they have set up traditions, then for thousands of years it has been there, right? But ultimate purpose is this, okay?
Thank you, Bhaiya.
Ganesh,
And they did all this and they brought it into the education, right? But that generalization has not taken place, right? Now we should make sure that it goes to everyone, everyone can do it with mainstream education.
Bhaiya, we understood that the material units get composed and decomposed. That is there, but the conscious units don't do that. They always exist. Is there a possibility that the conscious units can fall back to the category of material units, and material units can grow up to the level of conscious units? Is there any process or possibility?
I mean, if you ask yes, no, I will say no, okay? But if you say why no,
No, no, I am not asking why no. If there is no, then there is another question.
I am coming to that. I am saying, what is the main issue? Now that I am consciousness, right, I have to find out what I have to do. Or do I have to worry whether I am getting converted back into material or not? Okay. What is the issue?
No, issue is there, Bhaiya. The issue is, if the number of conscious units is fixed, it is constant, then how the population is increasing?
This is what I am saying. This kind of curiosity, no? I mean, I can always give answers to this. I can say that, you are killing all these animals, okay, what is that self doing now? It has started running this human body. So for that you don't have to, have this idea that new self have to be formed. You can see, so many animals are being killed, okay. Now there is enough number of selves who can start, associating with the animal body. So if the population of the human beings are increasing, there is no worry about it, because that so much of supply is there. But those are not the real time issue, I would say. The real time issue is for me, given that I am a consciousness, okay, and I want to be, in a state of continuous happiness, what do I do? Yeah, isn't it? That is the real issue. But those issues can be answered. I am not very purposeful.
Animals are dying and human beings are also getting perished. Human bodies are also getting perished. But ultimately the number of conscious units, that should remain fixed. Na? That there may be an interchange between the human body or animal.
Who is going to count this? I mean, very difficult thing. And this is not the only earth where human beings are there, right? If you look at the galaxy, such a big, few lakhs or crores of earth may be there where these selves are associated. And then there are places in space where you have self without the body, because self is anyway not dying, right? Now there is lot of coming here and there. Now how do you keep track of all this? At least I find it very difficult.
Actually, this UHV content is stimulating us to ask those kind of questions.
Yes.
Otherwise, we are very peaceful in our own state of being.
See, I am very purposefully trying to bring all these points, that all these curiosities are there. But then, what are the things which are of immediate concern, which can be explored, right? And we can get answer to that, and we can live up to it and verify. That is very important for me, because my basic concern is that it should come to the mainstream education. If that happens, then it is going to be liberating for all of us, right? So every time I try to bring it to the points which can be looked into, explored, verified by each one of us, okay, and can be transferred from one generation to the other generation. If you ask other questions, I somehow not promote them very much, because otherwise it becomes, very open-ended, and you get lost most of the time.
Ganesh, one question.
Yes.
We say that this is one of the path for realization.
Yeah.
And as Didi was also mentioning about chakras and all, there may be other methods. Maybe bhakti may be considered to be another path of realization. So is it like that some people will be aligned to the path of the knowledge, and some other people might be aligned more aligned to some other path which may be conducive for them, which may be better for them, to the path of realization, something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll this is an important question. I will come to this. Okay, this is 12:10. Okay. I will just briefly discuss about this, and then come back to your question, It will need some time to respond. See, the question now is that given all this, what I do as a human being, right? So, all this is given, we have discussed, and if you have the clarity of all this is the description of the clarity that I have, and on the basis of that the thought and the expectation, the way it will look like, all these are discussed. Then you will see, in a sense, that given all this, I as a human being, when I am looking at the coexistence, how will it look like to me, Now we want to understand how existence or coexistence is seen by the self and how space is seen by the self, depending upon activation of its higher and higher activities. When you start observing the nature and the existence, you see, to begin with, is you see the units, right? And in units also you generally see this form of the unit, right? The shape, size of the unit, okay? Isn't it? Like when I say this, you look at the shape of this unit, right? That is how you identify an unit, okay? Then if I say what is this, so you will say 2 units, right? One here, one here, okay? Is that clear? Yes. Now if I say that units are in coexistence in space, right? So unit is there, the space is there, right? And the unit is in space. If you are looking at it on the basis of the form, the shape, size and so on, how will you look at the space now in this? Yeah. So you look at it as the gap between the 2 units. Is that clear? Yes. So at the level of selecting and testing, where we are looking at the form, we see the coexistence as 2 units with gap void in between. Right? Is that clear? Very interesting. Same reality, right? Same reality, okay? This we were seeing as 2 different units having different form. Then I said these units are in space, and you started paying attention to it, and now you can see the void in between and the units, right? In fact, only when there is void in between, these are 2 units. If this void is, not there, now it is 1 unit or 2 unit? 1 unit, right? So you see 2 units only when there is a void between them, in between the 2. Yeah. So vision of the eyes, but vision of the self now if you include, Okay. And if you can see or imagine that even when they are put together, right, there is still gap between the two, then you can see that there are 2 units, isn't it? Now that once you have seen this, there are 2 units, and if I am putting together, if you are seeing only on the basis of eyes, you may feel that there is no gap, but now self knows that there is a gap in between, right. So for you there are 2 units, for the eyes there may be still 1 unit, right, isn't it? So all this you have to start, you will be able to see how it goes. Then when you are looking at it at the level of selecting and testing, and you are looking at the form, that is the kind of conclusion you will draw. Now suppose you have started looking at the level of analyzing and comparing, right, at the level of thought. Okay. Now you look at the sun, look at the earth, okay, how far they are? Very far. But you can feel the effect of the sun on earth, on the trees, on your body, right, skin of your body, right. Yeah. So this effect of the sun is reaching to your body, right, and there is space in between. As long as you do not pay attention to the space, fine, there is sun, there is your skin, your body, But now if you start looking at this coexistence, you would realize that this coexistence of units in space, in that what is happening is that effect of the sun is reaching to the body which is so far away, right. So this space now is not something very simple like absence, right. 2 units with effect of 1 unit on another unit. So coexistence is 2 units, right, which are far away, but effect of one is reaching to the effect of the other, So now it is not just a void, it is not an absence, it is a presence, this space is a presence in which the effect of one unit in this end is reaching to the other unit. Interesting, isn't it? Now this space is not something neutral, something like absent. It is a reality in which there are 2 units, and if these 2 units are there, effect of one unit reaches to the other unit. So now you start feeling that you are not in isolation. Previously you thought that you are in isolation because there is gap in between, void in between. Now you see that you are not in isolation. This space is something through which effect of one unit is reaching to me, effect of my is reaching to someone else. Third, when you are operating at the level of contemplation, you can see that not only the effect of one is reaching on the other, but there is a relationship of mutual fulfillment between one and the other. Now your space is becoming more important, It is becoming a reality in which one unit is related to the other unit. So not that you have to make relationship, the relationship is there by virtue of the units being in space. I have to understand the reality, accept this, understand this relationship and accept that relationship, rather than create that relationship.
Sir, one question, when we are talking about another unit, so is it when they come in contact that effect is there? Otherwise, if the two are in isolation, then
No,
like
where is the isolation? That is
so
the problem.
no, they are both are in space. Let us say a mobile and this bottle. So unless they come in contact with each other, there is no effect on each other.
No, no, sun
That is
and,
what we cannot see, rather.
sun and your skin, they are not in contact. They are so far away. And
Yeah,
there
but
is-
that we can sense that. That
Yeah.
sensation, but here these two units, both in material, physical unit, physical order.
There also, when you place, lit a fire and put some utensil on it,
Yeah, so unless they come in contact with each other,
the fire is there, your
okay.
cooker is there, there is a distance in between, still the effect of the fire is reaching to the cooker. Even if that fire is not physically reaching there,
Mhm.
its effect is reaching to the cooker, isn't it?
So unless we are able to see that, it will remain as assumption for us,
It will remain.
as assumption. Because if I see this mobile and this bottle, water bottle, there is a gap, and I'm not able to see the effect on each other.
Yeah, you are not able to see that station which is transacting with your mobile is far away and there is no direct between the two. You are connecting, to this station,
Mhm.
between you and the mobile and the station, there is no direct connection. There is space in between, okay. But there is a connection.
Here also we are looking at the screen, whatever is written there, but we are not in direct physical touch with the screen, but still it is having an impact upon us.
Yes.
Bhaiya, in space, self. For example, myself as self of Infanta and Vijayaraghavan sir self, two self, whether both of them will be able to identify that it is the self of the one. Identification will be there in space.
Yeah.
Known. All the selves will be known to the other selves.
Yeah, see, the reflection of one unit is already there in the other unit.
Okay.
Only thing is that the units may be gross or it may be subtle, right? If you are trying to see this some unit, depending upon the grossness or subtleness of that unit, you have to have the capacity to see that subtleness or grossness. So, with the eyes if I want to see, or through the eyes I want to see, then I can see only gross things, right. But this self has the capacity to see very subtle things, right. So, as you develop your capacity of this self, you can see subtler and subtler things, right. So, you can see the other self being reflected in you at the level of self. All those possibilities are there. All those possibilities are there.
Okay.
Then if I go little deeper, at the level of contemplation, I am able to see the relationship, and I am able to see the space as something which is basis for relationship, and I am able to see the coexistence as units in relationship. Is that clear? If I go deeper at the level of understanding, I can see the harmony. I can see that a unit is in harmony, and it is in harmony being in space. So, an unit is self-organized in space, is in harmony in space. In that case, I can see this coexistence as self-organization in an unit, and I can see the space as something in which every unit is self-organized. So now space is something more than this, for what it was before. Now I can see that space is something in which every unit is self-organized, every unit is in harmony. And the whole existence, coexistence, if I see it, means unit self-organized in space. That is the coexistence for me now. And if I go still deeper to the level of realization, I can see that unit is submerged in space. I can see the whole existence as coexistence, right. So I can directly see the space, I can see the unit, I can see the unit submerged in space. I can see that unit submerged in space is in harmony and is in relationship with other units. So all those things I can see. This is the range of my seeing things, right. And depending upon how deeper I am looking at, how subtler I am looking at the reality, right, I am able to see this existence, this coexistence at different levels, right. So starting from this, I can go on, and look at the existence, the coexistence in a subtler and subtler manner, in a deeper and deeper manner. And that
I'm having.
I can also see this space. So at the level of selecting and testing, I see the space as a void, as a gap, as an absence. At the level of analyzing and contemplating, I see this as medium for transfer of effect from one unit to the other unit. At the level of contemplation, I see it as a reality in which relationship is ensured for every unit with another unit. At the level of understanding, I can see that space is a reality in which harmony is ensured for every unit. And at the level of realization, I can see that space is a reality in which coexistence is ensured for every unit in existence. So for me now space becomes something very important, something very effective thing in this whole existence, and the coexistence becomes this. And if I can see these two things, then I can see that the whole existence is in coexistence, is in harmony, every unit is in harmony, every unit is in relationship with other unit, right. There is no isolation, there is no lack of relationship. Only thing that needs to be done by me is to understand this coexistence, harmony and relationship, and have the feeling for it, have the thought for coexistence, harmony and relationship, and live by that coexistence, harmony and relationship with every unit. That is what I have to do ultimately as a human being, right. So with this, the points for self-reflection is: investigate into your natural characteristic, being in relationship, inertness being in harmony, and coexistence being in coexistence, right. That is feeling in relationship, state of happiness, submergence in space. Investigate your living is centered around the activities of selecting. Where is you are centered, this, or this, or ultimately this. These are the 5 activities, and you ask yourself where you are centered, right. Same question, if you remember, we were asking, right, 6 to 1. Consider any unit and try to see all 5 aspects of the unit, that is form, property and so on, right. Also try to observe the activity of the self that is involved in seeing a particular aspect of an unit. Investigate, you are able to see the coexistence, submergence until which activity of the self. Investigate, you are able to see the space until which level of activity of the self. So all this you have to explore, which will give you an idea as to what is the level of your observation, level of your seeing. Okay. Yes, now I can come back to the question.
I have a doubt. Like in the activities of selecting and tasting, we say that the two units are with a gap. When I see by myself, can I say that the smallest building block of an unit, for example, the atom, with respect to myself, can I consider the atom as a unit? Because there will be space between two atoms since it is submerged in space. This unit is made up of atoms, the basic building blocks, and this is submerged in space. So there will be space between the atoms too. So the unit can be an atom. Can you consider that?
Unit is an atom, and if there is space in between the subparticles, of
Have the
atom,
atom. Yeah.
then even those subparticles have to be considered as units. Yes. So ultimately you have to go to the smallest unit,
Bhaiya, you said two units, one unit has an effect on another unit. Now let us take this example of pillow and chair. What is the effect of one unit on another when they are at this distance?
See, it may not be observable for you, right? But there may be some effects which we are not able to observe.
Any guess, Bhaiya?
No, for example, the moon and the sun.
Yeah, that example we keep hearing, but
Wait. If you see from the earth, okay, that you can see that there is some effect of the sun on the moon. And if the moon comes in between the sun and the earth, we are not able to see the sun. Right? Okay. Now, this effect that when the moon comes in between, we cannot see the sun, is not visible to you till that moon comes in between the sun. You think that you can see the sun, whether the moon is there or not there. What is the effect of it? But at one time it was not observable, now it is observable for you. But the effect is already there. Similarly, the sun has reflection on the moon and the moon has reflection on the earth. Right? That effect is already taking place. In the daytime you are not able to observe. In the night time you are able to observe. But then it does not mean that there is no effect. So all these effects are there because relationship is always there. So there are effects. Only thing is whether it is visible or not visible.
thank you, Bhaiya, got it.
Bhaiya, only one doubt. Both the things need not to be energized, Bhaiya. If it is energized, there will be a link. If both the things are not energized, so we can assume there will not be any link.
Yeah, but fortunately or unfortunately, there is no unit existence which is not energized, because all units are activity. Therefore, all of them are energized in space.
So all the units are energized, so the link is possible, though it is very nearby or far away. That way we can.
Link is already there.
Okay.
The effect is also there. Only thing is that effect may be visible to me or may not be visible to me.
Ganeshji, can we see the whole existence as a single unit?
Whole existence as a?
Single unit.
Yeah, I will not say unit. You can see the whole existence as one fundamental reality.
Okay.
When you say reality, it includes the unit as well as the space, which is not an unit. So the whole existence is the coexistence of unit in space. So I will say the whole existence is one fundamental reality in which we have space and the units, right, and this is inseparable. The units and space are inseparable, they are together in coexistence. That is what best we can say.
Sir, here already talked to units in solid state, you have easily separated. But in case of sodium chloride is added to the water, one solid unit, another one is liquid phase. So we can get the liquid phase, sodium chloride solution. Here unable to see the sodium chloride in the solid state itself. We can get the sodium chloride solution. Here what is the space?
No, if you look at the sodium, for example, right, if you look at the sodium chloride, okay, where is it in space? Number one. Number two, if you look at the sodium atoms, right, there is so much of space in between two sodium atoms. If you look at this inside the sodium atom, you will find that the sodium atom consists of so many subparticles, right. You keep talking about 11 electrons, and put together.
Proton,
and all that.
neutron.
There is space in between them also. So sodium is not a solid thing, okay. There are so many electrons and protons, and there is space so much of in between. All there the space is there, isn't it?
Sir,
Okay.
each unit.
So I'll please.
Yeah, each unit is made up of several units. So there is possibility of having one smallest unit, okay, when it comes to the material. Consciousness itself is a one unit. So conscious is not made up of several units. So when it comes to the consciousness, there is a unit, but the material is the unit of units, but possibility of having a smallest material unit. That smallest material unit could also be a consciousness unit. So, I mean, when we look into the existence, this existence is of just two reality. The one reality is the space and the other reality is the consciousness. If we go to that smallest unit of material, then this question is there.
Yeah, in fact, here instead of talking of units, it is better to talk about the activity. Then we can handle it better. We have the subtlemost activity and we have the gross activities, right. For example, the self, consciousness, is also an activity, and this body is also an activity. Activity seems to be, this body seems to be much gross activity as compared to the self, which is relatively subtle than the body, right. Now if you look at the self, self consists of still subtler activity, right. We can see these 5 activities in the self, right. 5 plus 5, 10, or rather, if you look at the state and the dynamic activity, at least 5 levels of these activities we can see. That means the consciousness is not one activity, right. It is constituted of subtler activity than this. So we have to go to those subtlemost activities, right, of which this consciousness unit is constituted. Similarly, when you go to the material unit, these material units are also constituted of the subtle activities, right. And when you go to the subtlemost, okay, we will say that this gross unit material unit is constituted of those subtlemost activities, right. For example, in the world of science today, it is saying that if you look at this sodium material, atom, it is constituted of some subparticles which are subtler than the atom. Okay. Whether you want to call them in terms of proton and neutron and things like that, or you want to call them in terms of quanta, but there are subparticles. Okay. So this atom is not really the ultimate particle. It is composed of the, still smaller particles called subparticles. So we have to go to that subtlemost activity. When we go to that subtlemost activity, then we can see that this material unit is made of those subtlemost activity, and these consciousness units are also made of that subtlemost activities. The basic difference is that when this composition is formed of this subtlemost activity, in case of material the structure is temporary, in case of consciousness the structure is continuous. Okay. That is how it will appear, and then these subtle activities further combining to make more and more gross activities, right, and that is how this whole nature is. So that is the kind, and all this is subtlemost activities are in space. So one subtlemost activity in space, another subtlemost activity in space, put together they are forming a gross activity, and it goes on building up. So we have these trees and big mountains, right, one human being, a family of human beings, society of human beings, all these larger units are being formed. But ultimately we have to trace some subtlemost activity at the base, call it some smallest particle, base level. Yeah. But it is better to see them as activity. To see them as unit, these units are made of other activities or subtler activities. So if you see them directly in terms of activities, you have the range of subtlemost activity to grossmost activity. Somewhere you can trace it as an unit depending upon what is the subtleness of your observation or grossness of your observation.
Bhaiya, subtleness of the activity in the self, at one point will it stay as no activity in the space, like in its completion point?
No. The no activity is space. The activity is always composed of activity, however subtle or gross it may be.
So what will be
It is not composed of no activity.
So what will be the completion point of the self?
Ultimately, if you see, this pure observer is an activity which is subtlemost activity with full expression of its potential. So that pure observer is one which has the highest potential. It can see all things around without assumption. It can see things as they are, and it can also see the space. So that is the highest expression of that subtlemost activity, and from there you can see that other activities, whether they are subtle activity, subtlemost activity or gross activity, those possibilities are there at the level of self. That is at the level of pure observer. That is why every time we are asking you this question, where you are, even within this self, what is the center of your being? If you are centered at the level of pure observer, then you have the likelihood of seeing the subtlemost activity, and therefore all the gross activities which are made of this. I have a question pending with Deepesh ji, and I have 15 minutes. So I'll take around 5 to 10 minutes responding to Dipesh ji, but before that I can answer some question. Yes.
Bhaiya, with this continuation to the smallest unit of the material, as Umesh Bhaiya asked. So, as far as the activities of the material which we give as formation and deformation, are we sure that that is the subtlest activity of the material unit? Yes.
No. No, we are not saying that. We are saying composition, decomposition is taking place, which means when it is decomposing means from a grosser unit, we have gone to relatively subtler unit. When composition is taking place, we are going from relatively, subtler unit to grosser unit. But it is relative, with each other. That is not the subtle most activity, yes.
So, in that case, the subparticles of the atoms, so we may not be sure what is the subtlest activities of those subparticles. So, if that continues to be continuous in time, since we are not aware of that, if that activity is going to be continuous, so in such a case, won't it be a contradiction with the consciousness unit?
These are interesting questions which have to be looked into, and there is a lot of scope for research.
Yes.
Yeah, I am telling this very seriously that science has limitations of going subtler and subtler because science is using the instruments which are gross in nature. And you cannot see anything subtler than the instrument itself. Okay? But when you use your own self as the observer, then you can see subtler things, right? So, lot of possibility of doing research on the basis of you directly being the observer rather than using the instrument as an means to observe. That's one thing. Even within this self we are saying that pure observer is the highest level of your capacity to observe. So, when you are seeing from that pure observer, you can see things much subtler. And what is being said is that from there you can see even the subtlemost thing, subtlemost activity. But whether you can really do it, not do it, all these are area of research. First do the self-exploration and make it an area of research, and if you are able to do this, put it properly that yes, this is how I can see. For example, if I do this self-exploration, I can see for myself which feeling is naturally acceptable to me, which feeling is not naturally acceptable to me. This cannot be decided by any instrument other than this pure self, pure observer. This much at least we can prove, right? Do all this research, lot of it to be done. Which is your area?
Area of my research, Bhaiya? I am working with optical communication.
Yes. Optical means capacity to see, isn't it?
What I feel at this point is there may be a possibility of having one more unit other than material and consciousness. Maybe. Since you said that.
Yeah, ultimately we have to find what is the subtlemost activity, right? So, one is the space which is no activity, the other is the subtlemost activity and this activities together are forming grosser and grosser activities. So, we will have to do this experiment, and I am saying that this experiment cannot be done by gross instruments. Ultimately, it has to be done at the level of self, and there also at the level of pure observer. Yeah. That is the question. Yes.
Bhaiya, actually, this is regarding Deepesh Bhaiya question. I think it is related.
Yes, I am going to answer to that question. But
Yes,
you can ask your
actually, my question is, we have one poet called Thiruvalluvar. Okay, he is a saint. He is not related to any religion. Okay, totally there are 1330 Kurals that is applicable to all the human being in the universe. It is called as Ulaga Pudumarai in Tamil. Okay, that saint, when he is contemplating, that is, he is participating, he has relation with all the human being nature. In that way, he is able to write all that in words. Totally, it will be having only 7 words. Okay, that will be related to all. Okay, whatever it is there in nature, what we are speaking, existence is coexistence, everything will be there in that Tirukural. Okay, in that case, that is, he has written one Kural, Deivathal Agatheninum Muyarchi Tan Meivarutha Kuli Tarum. That is, whatever effort we are doing, okay, even God has nothing has to do with. That is, effort is important. I am able to link with this. First day, we have started with self-development. There, that self-development itself is an effort. Therefore, even God has nothing to do with that when we are not able to put any effort. The first Kural out of 1330, the first Kural start with Tamil Ka Karka Kasadara Karpavai Katrapin Nirka Adarkataga. The same I am able to relate with this UHV. First we need to understand everything and then we need to live accordingly. Therefore, that realization, but he has not given the way what you are giving. Therefore, we are not able to make that in our living. We have studied in 8th standard 10 Kural, 9th standard 10 Tirukural, 10th standard 10, that count has been increased. Starting from first standard, second standard, we have studied Tirukural. All the people in Tamil Nadu, we have the Tirukural. Even I am getting from my friends group, even in Gindi group, AICT Gindi group, Udaya Prakash sir, 5 days we have attended UHV. Still, I think Sunil Bhaiya, he will be knowing it, and that he is also there in the group. Every day he will be posting one Tirukural with meaning for us. Because when we are reading the Tirukural, it will be relating more with what we are listening here. Okay, it has have that coincidence. Is that Thiruvalluvar, he has related with all the units in this universe and he has written with that. He is like God only, that is more than God, because he has given the statement, Deivathal Agatheninum, but he has understood that no, that effort human being has to take, I will write now, at least I am not there, my sentence, whatever I have written, that will reach to the people, let them realize and let them think that existence is coexistence. Is our both question, it is related to that. Thank you, Bhaiya.
I have been telling time and again that all great people, okay, have tried to understand, this harmony, this coexistence, this relationship, and when they have understood it, they have tried to live up to it, and they have tried to communicate to the people, in their own way, depending upon the time, the space, the culture, the language, So those expressions are different, but in essence, this is what they have been trying to, say. And what we are doing, we are not creating something new, we are only collecting it from that vast of, knowledge which is available. The effort that we are trying to make is that this should become the part of mainstream education. rather than being it, making it available to a selected few, right? If it can be made part of mainstream education, then it will reach everywhere and it can go generation by generation. One good thing has happened in the society today is that we have made the access of education to everybody in a very large manner. Almost every child is going through 12 years or 20 years of education, In 12 years we can get all this, transferred to every child. That is possible. So that's all that we are doing. Otherwise you will find this everywhere, Everywhere, I like when we were conducting these workshops in Punjab, many of them said that now we can understand, Guru Granth Sahib, and Guru Nanak in a much better way than we were understanding it before, right? Yeah, Bhutan, people said that we have been the followers of Buddhism, but now we can understand Buddhism better. Okay. So what we are saying is not something very different or something very new, but only thing is that we are saying that they wanted us to understand all that, right? Instead of trying to understand and live up to it, we have made some symbols out of them and, kind of freeze them. Now let's try to understand them, okay, what they are trying to say. And when we understand, we try to live up to that. Okay. Before closing, I will respond to Deepesh's question. Deepesh's question was, can you repeat your question?
Ji bhaiya, actually I was asking, like, this is one of the path, maybe we get the path of knowledge which we are trying to reach the state of realization. So I was asking, like, aren't there other paths like Bhakti Yoga, maybe the Tantras or other techniques? So isn't like some people may be aligned to some particular techniques, so will it be more easy for them to find the paths which are, which is aligned to them for the achieving a realization?
Yeah. So if you look at this, human conduct, okay, one is this part, B1, other is B2, third is this, your behavior, work and participation in the larger order. If all of us sitting here, if we start asking ourselves, where is the focus of my being to this date? That question I was asking, what is the center of your being? You ask that question to yourself, okay? You can find out whether your focus goes here, here or here. If your level of, being or is focused around the physical experience, outside world, what I am doing outside, what I am getting from outside, right? What I am giving outside, you are a good candidate for Karma Yoga, right? If your focus is on this, your feeling, your thought, right, then you have to work with Bhakti Yoga. If your focus is on to know, to understand, then Jnana Yoga. So at one time when whole lot of this work was being done in Indian tradition, they said ultimately you have to go from below to the top and from top to the down you have to come. But when you are beginning, where do you begin? If your focus is here, if you are living at a very gross level, begin with this. If you have developed some level of subtlety and for you feeling and thought have become important, start with this. If you have still become subtler, then you can start with this. So depending upon your level of development, okay, they started prescribing, how to start, where to start, okay. So if you are gross most, then Karma Yoga will be the prescription for you. If you are operating at this level, Bhakti Yoga is the prescription for you. If you are operating at this subtle level, then probably Jnana Yoga is the prescription for you, right? Like that, so many possibilities was worked out. And there is one interesting character, Gorakhnath. You heard of him? No, Gorakhnath you have not heard? Gorakhpur you have heard? Yes. Gorakhpur is the place which is named after Gorakhnath. Gorakhnath. This man was so specific that if somebody comes to him, he will take time to study through him, find out all the details of his level of the self, and depending on that he will give some prescription as to what he should do, okay, as a practice. So hundreds of people will come to him and he will give some route to work on, some practice. When these people went out and started cross-checking with each other as to what he said to you, then they found that he has said different things to different people, right? And these people got confused, right? There was no confusion in the mind of Gorakhnath, because he thought that given this state of the man, this is what he should do. When they started checking among themselves, they found that he has prescribed different things to different people. And it created so much of confusion that in Uttar Pradesh, this word Gorakh Dhanda, is used as a synonymous to confusion. Okay. Gorakh Dhanda means very difficult to understand what you are doing, Okay, all lot of confusion. But there was no confusion in the mind of the Gorakhnath, But people to whom he was recommending specific practices, it created lot of confusion in the mind of these people. Okay. So that kind of detailing was being done. And if you study Gita, for example, Gita is trying to somehow explain all this, Said, this is same Gita, the Karma Yoga is same as Bhakti Yoga, is same as Jnana Yoga, and same as, Raj Yoga, and so many things he is saying. And Arjun, to whom he is saying, every time he is getting confused. And he says, you tell me one of them, you are confusing me so much, Every time you say this is good and then you say next one is good, right? But what can he do? For him, everyone is good. Depending upon where you are, you have to select. But Arjuna is not very clear about it, okay? Every time you would say, you feel confusing, every time you say this is good and then after some time you say something else is good. You tell me which one is good. But that you have to find out for yourself.
Bhaiya, you mean to say that there is only one thing to be realized, only one truth to be realized, but there are multiple paths and the process to attain that realization.
Yes, ultimately one truth is to be realized and it is to be lived with.
Lived with.
But depending upon where you stand, you will have to start your path. So while going up, you have some point to start with. Then you go up, from there you come down. When you complete the thing, it is same. But for you, starting point is different.
Starting point is different.
So does that mean, Ganeshji, like if you start from that the lower space or bhakti, then also you have to go through the higher states of jnana only to reach the realization. Does that mean that?
If you read the authentic, text on bhakti, they either say that bhakti will lead to jnana or they will say Gyan is included in Bhakti. They are not denying Gyan. Similarly, this karma, people will say, it includes Bhakti and Gyan, or it is a path to Bhakti and Gyan, or it is an outcome of the Gyan and Bhakti. Ultimately, all three of them have to be ensured.
Okay. Thank you.
Point is where you start from. That's it. Difference.
Shall we break?
Yes.
So thank you, Ganeshji, for that insightful session once again. So we'll break for the lunch and we'll be joining back exactly at 2 p.m. Thank you. Namaste.